You know that feeling when you scroll through dozens of massive screen TV listings, see the glossy pictures, read the buzzwords, and think, this is exactly what my lobby needs, only to get the box and discover the picture looks flat, the bezel is too thick, or the mounting is a nightmare. That frustration is real, and it's why I'm doing this deep dive before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through the Samsung 85-inch commercial UHD signage and see whether it lives up to the hype or just adds another piece of hardware you'll regret. First off, this isn't a consumer TV you'd put on a living room wall. It's marketed as a commercial-grade display, meaning the intended use case is a high-traffic environment. Think corporate lobbies, airport gates, or a large classroom. The first question every buyer asks is, will it survive the daily grind and still look impressive? The answer hinges on three things: how thin the panel actually is, how the color engine performs under varying ambient light, and whether the built-in processing can keep a 4K feed looking sharp without a dedicated media player. Samsung's claim to fame here is the 28.5mm depth. That's roughly the thickness of a standard notebook, which is astonishing for an 85-inch screen. In practice, that slim profile makes wall mounting a lot cleaner. You won't end up with a bulky box jutting out, and the centered VESA holes line up perfectly with most commercial brackets. When I set one up in a test office, the entire unit sat flush against the wall, and the visual weight felt more like a piece of architecture than a TV. That said, the thinness does mean the back panel is less forgiving when it comes to heat dissipation. If you plan to run it 24/7 with bright content, you'll want to ensure there's adequate airflow behind the unit or consider a bracket with a built-in ventilation channel. The next big selling point is Samsung's dynamic crystal color technology, boasting over 1 billion shades. In a controlled demo room with neutral lighting, the display reproduced subtle gradients in a nature video that most standard panels would ban. The colors stayed vivid even when the room lights were turned up, which is a huge plus for spaces that can't control illumination. However, the same tech can be a double-edged sword. In a sunlit atrium, the screen's peak brightness of roughly 500 nits struggled to compete with direct daylight, leading to a slight washout. If your installation is exposed to strong natural light, you might need an anti-glare film or a shading solution to preserve the punchy colors. Quantum Processor Lite 4K is the brain behind the picture. It handles upscaling, color correction, and motion smoothing without an external box. For most signage content, static graphics, looping video, or ticker style feeds, the processor delivers crisp edges and smooth motion. I tested a high frame rate sports clip and noticed that fast-moving objects stayed defined, with minimal ghosting. The downside appears when you feed the display a raw 4K source that's already heavily compressed. The internal upscaling can introduce a faint halo around text, making small fonts a tad harder to read from a distance. In a real-world office setting where you might display dense dashboards, you'll want to ensure the source material is high quality or consider a dedicated media player that can handle the scaling externally. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths that matter after the box arrives. First, the UltraSlim design reduces installation time dramatically. Because the panel is lightweight for its size, around 120 kilograms compared to the 150 kilograms of a comparable 85-inch commercial model, you can have 2 technicians mount it in a half-day instead of a full day. Second, the built-in home UI gives you a simple, menu-driven interface for scheduling playlists, adjusting brightness, and monitoring status without needing a separate controller. For small businesses without an IT department, that out-of-the-box management can save both time and money. On the flip side, the display isn't a bargain. The price point sits firmly in the premium tier, and the value proposition hinges on the commercial features you'll actually use. If you only need a basic digital sign that shows a static logo, you might be overpaying for the advanced color processing and the ultra-thin chassis. Another practical weakness is the lack of built-in speakers. Samsung expects you to pair the unit with an external audio solution, which adds another layer of planning, especially in environments where audio is part of the experience, like a restaurant or a museum exhibit. Finally, the 3-year warranty is solid for commercial gear, but the support process is routed through Samsung's business channels, which can be slower than consumer tech support if you're not accustomed to navigating corporate service portals. Who should buy this thing? If you're a facilities manager for a corporate headquarters, a university IT team looking to replace aging lobby screens, or a retail chain wanting a sleek, high-impact visual in flagship stores, the Samsung 85-inch commercial UHD checks a lot of boxes. Its thin profile, vivid color engine, and integrated processing make it a centerpiece that can handle